Hello, Sioux Valley Middle School and High School staff. We are officially in the new fiscal year. That means that we are gearing up and getting ready for the 26-27 school year. One of the things that I want to update you on is now that our student handbook has been updated and approved by the school board, I want to make sure that you are in the loop in terms of what are some of those changes as well as some of the why behind it. So, starting off with our cell phone and personal technology. So, this was the culmination of a great deal of work by our cell phone committee based out of that operations and logistics subcommittee that was working. The ultimate ending point is that we do have a split model for this year. So grades 6 through 10, they are going to have a locker that will be located at the start each morning in one of the grade level advisors. And so that will be collected at the beginning of the day. Those lockers will be then transported down here to the office where they will be stored throughout the day. And then towards the end of seventh period, those lockers would be brought back to those same designated locations, and then students would be able to pick up their cell phone from there. So look for more details. We'll get standard operating procedures posted within the staff hub coming out here shortly. For grades 11 through 12, they are going to have the cubby system yet, so they will need to check in their cell phone in a pocket chart at the start of every class period, including study hall. And consistency is so important this year. That's obviously been a hot button. We've had a lot of input from people throughout, but one thing that has been abundantly clear is the need for consistency from everyone for cell phones being away during the classroom time. I'm excited to roll out this procedure for our 6 through 10. And then I'm counting on consistency with the 11 and 12 and follow through that needs to happen to make this a success. Change for our staff as far as the discipline with the cell phone is that every confiscated device, instead of the teacher holding the cell phone for the first infraction and then giving that back to the student at the end of the class period, the very first offense, you're going to collect that from a student. That would get turned into the office, and then the office would hold that until a parent or a guardian is picking that up. So a slight change for you in terms of the response that would be needed. Need to make sure that as far as personal technology, that includes AirPods, earbuds, Bluetooth headphones. Those would not be permitted during the academic day. We're going to give smartwatches a try. That'll be permitted for now. We'll reassess at semester time to see if that's a distraction that students pivot to, or if that would be something that has a minimal impact that way. So we're going to monitor that. Next big change would be with student responsibility period. Obviously, SRP is not new to us, but how we will do it will be new. It's new in our handbook. We were trialing it last year. I think we had some great successes and some things that we learned along the way. Our greatest successes, I would say, came from those students that had one consistent adult that they worked with throughout their time in an SRP. So students could still earn their way in and out, but having that one designated adult that really got to know them, got to develop relationships with them, got to develop relationships with parents even, having that consistency mattered. And so we're trying to expand that beyond just what's happening in our SPED classrooms, what happened with Mrs. Ostrom in the mini theater with our 504 students. We want to scale that out. And so to do so, Every middle school and high school certified staff is going to have an SRP section all year long. We are going to cap that at about 5 students is the goal, and hopefully on the lower end versus the higher end. So deeply getting to know our students. Again, there will be in and out, so it's not something where students are necessarily assigned all year. But if we do have a student that's in for the first midterm and then they earn their way out and then they're back in the third midterm, it's going to go back to that same adult. We're going to try and align and have that consistency with adult presence with our SRP. Attendance changes. So attendance is tracked per semester as it is on Infinite Campus. We still have our attendance points separate from our behavior points. Still have default consequences that would come from that, as well as if students continue to rack those up, there would be other interventions, parent meetings, attendance contracts, as well as working with our Brookings County truancy team for truancy referrals. The big thing, though, that would impact you as teaching staff is we do have students that miss more than the prescribed maximum of 10 absences, and often will have a note from a provider of some kind. Maybe it's their counselor, maybe it's their chiropractor, maybe it is their medical provider. So there are legitimate reasons for the absences, but they are still excessive absences. And I think in some regards they're genuine, and I think in some regards they're being leveraged. I'll leave it at that. And so what we are moving towards is if a student does miss over 10 absences in a class in a semester, if there is a plan that is offered to them for retaining credit, that plan would include a mandatory comprehensive semester test. The student would need to pass with a C grade or higher, 70% or higher, to retain credit in that instance. And if they are not able to pass that, then it would be an incomplete on their transcript. Other big change then and need for consistency and follow through again, if we have students that have a planned absence. So the old verbiage in the handbook was very clear in terms of if it's a unexpected absence, and kids know about the 2 days that they would have for making up for an unknown absence, but we want to make sure that when students do know in advance that they're going to be gone, whether it's a school activity, vacation, whatever the case may be, that the expectation is that students will notify their teachers in advance, that any pre-provided work that is given to students would be due on the day that they return, and that tests and quizzes that are scheduled for that day they return should be taken as scheduled. The discipline grid, not a big change, just tweaked it to make sure that the cell phone procedure matches, and then also designated that anytime we have a more serious infraction, class 3, that would be a safety thing, bullying, harassment, anything of that more severe nature, as well as class 4, that's where we're talking about illegal things. Those would have communication towards activity directors and coaches to make sure that they are in the know as well, because at that point we'd be talking about some potential training rules violations. As far as academics, we did update our graduation requirement to include our senior capstone that's mandatory. We updated language to make sure that our verbiage matches the state's for the Opportunity Scholarship. We touched on in study hall that although that's not a credit-bearing course, it is an expectation that students are there working on study skills and executive functioning skills. And so although you cannot lose credit for missing study hall, missing more than 10 is going to be considered excessive and then would be treated as unexcused absences in that case. And then lastly, we are making a change to our backpack procedure. High school students will now be able to carry a reasonably sized backpack, whether it is clear or opaque. So meaning it would not need to be clear, regular backpack in classrooms and hallways, and they would need to be placed to keep walkways clear. So as far as the why, uh, my goal is to minimize power struggles that are not necessary. And then as far as the safety aspect goes, a lesson learned is that you cannot predict an emergency, right? There are things that we can do as deterrence, but that is not something that is predictable. And so, reached out to numerous schools across our state and in our region. And I think probably the most telling is that in Harrisburg, that has one of the most documented cases of a school safety incident that happened, and yet that is their clear mantra, where you cannot predict an emergency in that regard, and so they still allow opaque backpacks. And so, again, in an effort to minimize conflict that's unnecessary, and just the reality of the clear backpacks did not hold well. And so, with that, we are going to shift back that students can carry a reasonably sized opaque backpack at the high school level. So, if you do have any questions, or if you want to visit about any of these further, feel free to reach out and give me a call. Otherwise, keep enjoying those summer months. I know after the 4th of July, it starts to shift a little bit. You walk down Walmart and the aisles look a little different with school supplies, but don't let it fool you. We have time, enjoy the day, and then, yeah, one step at a time. So we'll be seeing you in the not too distant future, but enjoy the day.